let's bring you the news for this July 14th, 2015. Dun dun dun. Iran nuke deal resets Eurasia's great game. Iran, supported by Russia and China, has finally successfully called the long, winding 12-year long Atlantis bluff on its nuclear weapons. His nipples out of the picture. Maybe not. Iran achieved a long sought objective. Rouhani. Israelis' effort to push nuclear talks into failure have led to the defeat of the Tel Aviv regime, Iranian president stated. Netanyahu. Israel, not bound by Iran deal, will defend itself. President tells Tehran a foreign policy based on threats to attack your neighbors or eradicate Israel, that's a dead end. Full text of President Barack Obama's speech on nuclear deal with Iran. President tells Tehran a foreign policy based on threats to attack your neighbors or eradicate Israel, that's a dead end. Lavrov. Russia expects U.S. to abandon Europe amid plans. AMD after Iran deal. Moscow hopes U.S. will fulfill its promise not to develop a system of missile defense in Europe after a deal with Iran has been reached. Warning, nuclear deal with Iran is prelude to war, not a breakthrough. The West has no intention of striking any lasting deal with Iran. ISIS crisis exogenesis. Talking with Iran has made the war profiteers and their servants sad and the rest of the world happy. Perhaps the novel idea of negotiating rather than killing will be carried over to several other parts of the world. Roger Annis, war in Ukraine and NATO offensive in Eastern Europe. An eyewitness report from a war zone in eastern Ukraine. Can the US evolve with Russia and the rest of humanity? If not evolution, then revolution is required in America if greater humanity is to progress. Greece is being treated like a hostile occupied state. The cruel capitulation forced upon Greece after 31 hours on the diplomatic rack offers no conceivable way out of the country's perpetual crisis. Yanis Varoufakis on Greece crisis. The banks were used by foreign powers to take over the government. Another terror arrest, another mentally ill man armed by the FBI. U.S. law enforcement officials announced another terror arrest on Monday after arming a mentally ill man, then charging him with having guns. Scott Walker, an idiot, ready to serve on day 900. Scott Walker, the Wisconsin governor best known for his war against labor unions, in particular the workers in general. Double suicide bombing kills hardline rebel leader in Syria. A double suicide bombing in northern Syria on Tuesday targeted the headquarters of an ultra-conservative Islamic rebel group, killing its leader and several other high-ranking members. ISIS gains ground against Syria army in Hasakeh. ISIS has gained ground against the Syrian army in a major northeast city, activists said, after 3 weeks of clashes that killed 170 people. 14 Iraqis killed, 35 injured in car bomb blast in Baghdad. ISIS in Iraq. Thousands of Shia militiamen to join decisive battle to take back Fallujah. The battle is likely to be one of the decisive military engagements of the Iraq War, as Fallujah has been at the center of the Sunni revolt in Iraq since the U.S. invaded the country in 2003. Fighting airstrikes kill at least 45 in Yemen despite truce. 10 alleged members of Al-Qaeda killed in a U.S. drone attack in Yemen. 10 members of Al-Qaeda, including 3 local leaders, were killed in 2 raids by U.S. drones in southeastern Yemen. Saudi-backed forces seize Aden airport, exiled government. Gulf-backed Yemeni forces recaptured Aden's international airport from Houthi militia fighters on Tuesday as heavy combat took place across the port city following the collapse of a humanitarian truce, the exiled government said. Video shows Palestinian youth fleeing before being killed. Human rights group accuses Israeli officer of shooting unarmed teenager in the back near checkpoint in the West Bank. 16 people were killed in Gaza, how the New York Times whitewashes out Israeli violence. Let's say you're the leading American newspaper and the 1-year anniversary of the Israeli attack on Gaza is looming. How do you cover the story? That's a problem. It's hard to acknowledge this important milestone without pointing out the Israeli violence, which included war crimes and a continuing blockade. Israeli spy admits we encouraged anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. Perhaps members remember that next time Netanyahu exploits a tragedy or claims to speak for all Jews. Iranians are euphoric after nuclear deal reached. Iranians are declaring online that the deal is a victory, posting Iran wins peace in thousands of tweets and Instagram posts since Monday. Islamist militants killed 70 people in northeastern Nigeria. 100 dead migrants washed up off Libyan coast. Pakistan military says 14 militants killed in airstrikes in an ongoing operation against the Taliban and other insurgents. 14 fighters killed in Taliban-ISIL internal clashes in Afghanistan. Mashri Wal said that 9 militants were killed and 11 others wounded after a fight broke out between 2 insurgent groups of the ISIS and Taliban in Shoalini area of Kap-Ahar district on Monday. According to the Mashki-Wal, the second clash erupted in Mamand village in Akhin district, leaving 5 more militants killed. U.S. drone attack kills 12 people in Afghanistan, Nangarhar. Afghan occupation costs American taxpayers $4 billion per hour. A new study shows the American war in Afghanistan is costing taxpayers roughly $4 million an hour, despite the Obama administration's drawdown of troops, leaving only 10,000 soldiers in the country. Right sector gunmen take boy hostage in western Ukraine. 2 people were killed Saturday in a right sector gun and grenade attack on police in a western Ukrainian city. Police had surrounded some gunmen in a wooded area of Mukachev and have been trying to negotiate their surrender since then. How Canada's embassy in Ukraine was used as pawn in 2014 uprising. The Canadian press pieces together how a security breach at an embassy wound up having far-reaching implications. IMF calls for Greek debt relief as Germany talks tough. A secret International Monetary Fund study showed Greece needs far more debt relief than European governments have been willing to contemplate so far, as Germany heaped pressure on Athens on Tuesday to reform and win back its partners' trust. The Troika and the 5 families. The Germans just made their biggest mistake in a long time. How about some 75 years over the weekend? Tormenting Greece is about sending a message that we are now in a new European Union. What's the difference between the mafia and the current European leadership? The mafia makes you an offer you can't refuse. The leaders of the European Union offer you a deal you can neither refuse nor accept without destroying yourself. Puerto Rico plans to make workers pay for the island's debt crisis. The fallout continues in Puerto Rico's debt crisis following the June 29th announcement by Governor Alejandro Garcia Padilla that the U.S. Commonwealth's $73 billion debt is not payable. Headquarters of Ecuador's ruling party bombed. The attack took place at a time of high tension for the government. Authorities say the bomb was well made and thoughtfully planned. Maduro talks to Telesur. From the Peruvian Sun Hall at Miraflores Palace, Telesur's Tatiana Perez and Rey Gomez spoke to President Nicolas Maduro about the government's plans to recover the disputed territory which Venezuela believes has been taken from it illegally by the British Empire. Guantanamo prisoner cleared of war crimes remains in solitary confinement. A month after a federal court set aside a 2008 tribunal's war crimes conviction of a former Osama bin Laden aide, he remains isolated as a convict in maximum security prison at Guantanamo. Citizen4 director Laura Poitras sues U.S. over Kafkaesque treatment. Filmmaker whose documentary about Edward Snowden won an Oscar says she has been held for hours at a time by airport officials, told she was on a no-fly list, and threatened with handcuffs for taking notes. And can I read any more news? Or that's pretty much what I got for now. Yeah, that's good. That's the news.